Welcome back, everybody, or the one faithful watcher that I have. Thank you very much for your support. I do appreciate you watching the episodes. If you know somebody that would benefit from it, please share, like, subscribe if you are new, notification button, all that jazz. Because I do enjoy what I do, and it is part of my training and my growth as a practitioner. As a matter of fact, I'm constantly collecting different things, like a new toy that I got from Native Clan, Hio Campbell's brand of training blades. It's a lot of fun. I haven't put it down in days since the last time I was at the VA, and I purchased this particular model because he has a whole bunch depending on your style of fighting. And talking about the VA, November 5th, there will be it's a collective, 8 different instructors, of which I don't know the listing just yet. I will get you more information on that. Or you can go to Facebook at the VEA Martial Arts Academy, as well as Mike Cardenas, who is the organizer of the event itself. But that's coming up in November. Time flies when you're having fun, so please make sure you look into it and get all the details so you can be there. It's a lot of fun. There's always so many smiling faces getting thrown around and punched because, well, who doesn't enjoy that? But sometimes, because of the person in front of you, we tend to alter things. And lately I've been thinking, am I really doing these techniques properly? Am I doing them right? Am I messing up? Because here's what happened last week in my Kaju Kempo training. Normally I have this 6'2" dude who's like a good 25 pounds heavier than me, if not more. Very muscular, big old biceps. He's just a big guy. And I have no problem laying into him. When we do the punch techniques, making contact, no problem. Last week, there was a student, he wasn't there, that kind of took his place for that day, and they're 100 pounds. Literally 79 pounds, 69 pounds. I lost weight, shut up. Lighter than me. And for whatever reason, I instinctively pulled back, especially when we did like the punch arts, and I didn't make contact. Now, they're at least a belt, if not 2 belts higher than me, and they were making contact. Now, I wasn't bleeding, but I felt it. Punch to my solar plexus, there was an elbow to the nose, and a few other ones that were like, okay, you're putting something into it. And I was like, but I did it. Partly because I know there was no malice behind it. So it was just part of the training. But at the same time, I started thinking, did I do that correctly? Because in our training, in that particular school, if somebody tags you, you tag them with the same intensity. You reciprocate the energy that they give you, because that's how we train. That's how we grow. That's part of the process of understanding, oh, I just got punched. What do I do now? So it's part of the learning process, and I held back. So does that mean that I did the technique wrong because I didn't follow through? I didn't connect? And did I do a disservice to my training partner by not giving them that feel? Now, we've talked about this before in previous episodes about the training partner dynamic. Going too hard, not going hard enough. And I fell into that very same trap, even though I myself have brought it up as a topic. So how do we keep ourselves from getting down that path? And before we delve too much into that, there was more that happened that made me think that I may not be performing the techniques to the best of my ability. Because for me, at least the way I was brought up in the brilliant mind, the technique is less about the specific movement and more about learning the mechanics behind the movements. So then you can utilize them at any point in any given way. It doesn't have to be in that sequence. It could be whenever you need it. But it's mechanical. It's not about strength. It's just the physics that happen because your body turns a certain way, because you drop your weight, because you rotate a certain way, because you change the positioning of your feet. All these things equate to the power that you need without utilizing strength. And here I am doing a technique which requires me to pull this person and end up in a horse stance and their head by my shin. And when I did it, I felt like I was flinging them to the wall. Mind you, they're only 100 pounds. But it got me thinking, have I been doing this wrong the whole time? Because normally, the big guy that I play with, that I train with, I'm using too much strength. I'm not utilizing my mechanics properly. And it showed because all of a sudden, with strength, I'm pulling this person, which if I'm doing it correctly, it should still work out the same way. They're about my height. They just happen to be lighter. But now I'm really evaluating to that umpteenth degree. Because it's not until you get put in a place where you're maybe a little uncomfortable, or maybe you've just never been there, you've never played with somebody that's lighter than you. In my mind, every time I fight or I train, it's either somebody my height and relative weight, or somebody bigger and stronger. Or sometimes somebody shorter and heavier, but that's neither here or there. The point is that at no point did I consider that my opponent would be a smaller framed person, a lighter person. Not to say that I'm underestimating that individual, but maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on the idea that I am bigger and potentially physically stronger, which means I'm not using the mechanics that I'm learning through these techniques properly, but rather relying on physical strength and brute strength. And if that person knows exactly what they're doing, even though they're smaller, 8 different hits into soft areas, soft targets, places I know for a fact that if they get tagged, even with minimal strength, will cause major injuries, if not lead into something that could be far, far worse for me. Then all of a sudden, I got my ass kicked by somebody much smaller than me because I overestimated our difference in size. So since that class and the failures that I had in that class in performing the things that I thought I was good at, all of a sudden I have to reevaluate really what it is that I'm focusing on and what it is that's going to be useful in application in the real world. Because again, the techniques are tools for you to learn the movements, learn the sequence, learn the curriculum. But what you get from it is so many other benefits, from body mechanics, from timing, from speed, from dexterity, flexibility, all these things to develop the weapon that is you, the person. And in the Bladed Mind, our focus has always been that, sharpening the mind. And all of a sudden I felt like I was missing something. Because everything should translate regardless of the person in front of you. Adjustments? Sure. But the mechanics of the human body are the same. Sure, some are taller, some are heavier, some are smaller, shorter. Doesn't matter, the mechanics still work, but there is a big difference in the change in weight, in the differences between the two people. And if we're not aware of that, then we cannot adjust properly the difference in size. And I've heard it before. I've heard before in, like, say, jiu-jitsu. You take a black belt that's a certain weight, say my weight, 170, and you play with somebody that's a lower belt, but is 20 pounds heavier, or even 10 pounds heavier. That belt difference matters less and less. Say they're a brown belt and you're a black belt, they're 10 pounds heavier than you, it's the equivalent of going up against a black belt of your same weight class. So there is a difference. Something does happen. Now, we weren't necessarily grappling. It was a dropping technique and a pull and a break and all this and that, but I was not prepared for it. And because I was not prepared for it, had that been a physical altercation with somebody that size in the real world, it could have ended really badly for me. Because I underestimated and I didn't push. I didn't get to the point where I'm giving them what they were giving me in sense of training, of contact, of intensity, speed. And I don't know what it is. Maybe I was just felt, oh, this person is small and frail. I don't want to hurt them. And that could possibly be it. But is that the proper mindset to have in your training? Because ultimately, as I kept thinking about these lack of understanding, I realized that all the techniques in the world really aren't going to make a difference if you don't have the mentality to implicate those things, the intensity or the intent even. And if we don't train that, if we don't train the disparity that happens when you face somebody much bigger than you or somebody much smaller than you, then we may be caught off guard. There's a lot to be said about changing partners, and that's why I brought up the convention first, because when you go to gatherings like that, you get to train with people that are much bigger than you or much smaller, that are new to the game, that are veterans. Some of them are instructors in other arts. Some of them ask for more because they don't want to be underestimated and they want to feel what it's like for somebody they don't know to really lay into them, not to hurt them, not out of malice and not to get into a real altercation, but to get a good sense as close to realism as possible. And it makes a huge difference in the way that we view things, because oftentimes we get far too complacent because we play with the same person, we train with the same partners over and over again, and we get really good at performing and doing the things with them because they know what's happening, and then all of a sudden we get switched into a place where you don't know anyone. And none of your stuff works. None of the things that you were confident with are coming out the way that you know how to do them. Frustration sets in. And then you try to muscle through. You try to compensate for your lack of understanding with brute force. And then you end up hurting somebody inadvertently. Because you don't get the tension. You don't know the difference between the two. And you just... And in class, that might be okay. Well, hurting your partner is never okay. Just putting that out there. But what I mean by it's okay is because there's no malice there. Or at least there shouldn't be. But how does that translate into the real world? When you do need it. When you are being attacked. Because ultimately, that's where my training is. That's where my mindset goes. And if I don't have an answer, if I don't have a way to really simulate that change, what's going to happen? No matter how many years under me I have, get my ass kicked. Maybe even killed. Because I was either overconfident or I underestimated people. And yes, those are two very different things. They're not one and the same. It's not that you underestimate somebody, it's that you think you're better than them. And if you underestimate somebody, it's because you think they're worse than you. And those two mindsets come from the same place, from the same ego, but they're processed differently. And that day was very humbling for me. Because I could pick this person up very easily and toss them. But that's not what I'm there to learn. I'm not there to learn how to bully those who are literally lighter and smaller than me. I'm there to learn proper technique, proper understanding of my mechanics and the mechanics involved in that process from my opponent to me. And I failed that day. But it was a good day because in that failure, I learned so much more, and now I can redirect my training to compensate for my lack of understanding. And I can grow. So, it was a great day. It may have sucked in the moment, and it was funny because there was a lot of laughs involved. But ultimately, if I thought about it carefully, there's a lot to be learned in those failures. And I hope that you all keep on trying different things. Keep on playing with different people and failing. Failing in the class, there's nothing wrong with that because it's learning. You figure out what you're missing and you can grow and you can supplement and you can cross-train and you can look for the answers before you actually need them. Well, that so far has been my journey. It's been fun and interesting to say the least. Oh. Now, I don't know if you folks have seen it. If not, check out the channel because the Konversation guys are back. My co-host is well enough to sit up for at least an hour and have a conversation. And we actually already released our first episode back just a couple of days ago. So check that out. And next weekend, next Sunday, we will be posting our episode with Jimmy Mirador. God, I sounded so white when I said that. Mirador. Ha! There you go. There's that Latin twang. Because he's a very interesting individual and we can't wait to introduce him to you all. And he's just fun to talk to. He's very insightful. We're very like-minded. He's the kind of person that would rather be in the background and not notice. And he did such a good job that we've seen him several times, but it isn't until that day that we found out he's an actual instructor and his stuff is good. And not to mention, he's so knowledgeable about so many things FMA. You have to watch, folks. It's a fun conversation and you'll learn a lot. Very insightful, so keep an eye out for that. If you haven't hit the notification button, please do, because then you will know for sure when that episode is put up. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me on this Nain short. Till the next one. 3, 2, 1, cut!